Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. Well, she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
Welcome back to the Casually Molly podcast, everybody. My name is Molly Ambergy. As you already know, if you're a longtime listener, but if you're brand new, hello. We are based out of St. Louis, Missouri, and I just love to interview comedians, actors, artists, entertainers, you name it. And I'm very happy to have our guest today, Vanessa Rudloff. Just give her a round of applause if you're at home or wherever you're listening. If you're listening in your ears, your car, I'm very happy to have her back today. And when I say back, Vanessa is you're a lifer when it comes to Casually Molly.
Yeah, I was there in the beginning.
You were in the beginning. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that when you were first on the podcast?
Well, it used to be in a basement. Electricity was iffy. Sometimes it was in, sometimes it was out. You only had one working arm. So we've really, really evolved is what I feel. This is very professional. I'm now being videotaped, which is, not something I do every day.
Yes. So. Oh, you just don't walk around with paparazzi?
No, the whole pandemic Zoom thing, seeing yourself all the time was very terrible for my ego. Yep. My ego was like this big, and then all of a sudden I'm on Zoom, and so it's a good thing,
Hey, cheers.
Alcohol.
There we go. Yes, thank you to Chris Denman, who runs Midcoast Media, one of the co-founders, made us a nice drink. Very excited about that as well. But Vanessa, I'm really happy you're joining me. I remember when we were first recording, and I say I remember because I listened to the recording today. Vanessa and I have a background, long story short, we used to live in the artist lofts of Midtown area, the Metropolitan Artist Lofts across from the beautiful Fox Theater. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the area, it is the artistic district of St. Louis. And we became newfound friends. But yes, during that interview, I was very drugged up because I had a broken arm, but she was wonderful. So I was rambling a lot. So here I am rambling again. But I'm happy to have you back because I'm surprised again, you don't have paparazzi running after you because you are one of the main faces of Grand Center now, which is very, very cool to see. How do you feel about that?
Again, the paparazzi thing freaks me out, but this has been, I have been videotaped more in the last 2 years than my whole life, so that's really interesting. You make a joke about it, but I was actually videotaped for Grand Center Arts District promo.
Yes.
And I was blonde. It was COVID, so it was COVID cuddly, and they were like, "Can we put you in front of a videotape and walk you around?" And I was like, "Absolutely, okay, sure." My worst nightmare. Yes, absolutely. Let's do it. So, what's interesting is now I have a red hair, and I really hope that no one recognizes me. I have completely moved into my alter ego. So
absolutely, I kind of love it. Now, well, you know me, I've gone through multiple hairstyles too, so I totally understand that. When I first started filming this podcast, I had bright red hair, and then I got a different job that said change your hair colors. Yeah, it was definitely a different transition, but I am excited about it. Speaking of that video, though, I was really excited for you because to give a background for those of you who are watching or listening either here in St. Louis or outside, we've got people who listen around the country. What's very exciting about you, when I met you, you were a photographer. I mean, you still are, working here in St. Louis. And then you got a arts curator job at the On God Arts Hotel, which is just located right here in Grand Center. Very cool. And you recently just curated a gallery show there that I got to attend. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure thing. I always like a good shameless plug about On God Arts Hotel. Mm-hmm. So the On God is the first arts hotel in St. Louis. We're very proud that we only show local artists. So when we rotate the artwork, we rotate the first floor and then the entire public space with artists, different exhibits that we're rotating out. So my favorite thing to do is talk a lot and hang out with friends, but the art exhibits really provide a moment for you to bring the whole city in and celebrate what the artists in the community are doing. And I like to throw a good party. So when you came over with special friend and your special friend's like, I know art now. And I'm like, all right. Impressed you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I didn't even know that was happening.
Right.
It's exciting to actually bring that art to people that don't usually see it, for one. But my position is really exciting. I'm the arts relations manager, so it's not just the curation, but we do the arts programming. We talk to other artists as well, so it's one thing that Molly and I have in common, which we do love to share. And the thing about the curation is that when you are taking in a bunch of art and you want to share it with people, you're wanting to provide a certain experience. And I have to say that after COVID, one of the things I wanted to provide was a little bit of comedy, a little bit of color, a little bit of travel. And the work that's there right now is very exciting because it's got a little LA vibe. There's some bald eagles with goldfish flying through the sky. We have laughing dogs. We have this awesome piece by an artist named Jessica Hunt who has 3 different flocked figures, flocked being like the texture of them. And they're individuals laying in bed, and it's things that you say to people when you're laying in bed. And one of them is like this couple, and the couple is like, the one is like moved away and the other one's like looking over, and it's just like this thought bubble or the speaking bubble, and it says, "You're really not going to say anything?" ? And that's the answer. Anyway, so I'm very excited about the work that's up right now. It's very fun.
Yes, well, it was a great show. I felt like what I loved about it of how organized it was, but still had a very artistic flow to it. Like, I didn't feel rushed. I felt like I could sit and actually study the work, see the different people. And it was, what I loved was there was a variety of culture behind it. There was one picture or one painting that really struck me, and I say picture because I had never seen something like this. I went up to, I think I sent you the photo. I went up to this canvas and I thought it was a photo at first. I was like, oh, this is photography, like that's art. And then I realized it was a painting, and I was just so impressed. I didn't even know something like that was possible until I went to an art show such as this. So that's why I wanted to ask you, I forget the name of the artist, but I did want to ask you, how do you decide when you're making a show like that happen? I mean, you do this like at different museums and things like that, and it was so cool to have something that was free and also right in our artistic arena of St. Louis. How do you pull something like this together?
Well, we do have a unique opportunity. Most arts hotels are the ones that are most commonly known, or international artists, so you have a large pool to pull from. However, we only showcase artists within 200 miles. So then when you put out a call for art, it's really about the intricacies of the community around you. Like, how do we showcase as much as we can of what the city is doing? So this particular show, the call went out, the artist submitted, and I was curating based on how the submissions fit together. So it doesn't have a theme. You just find certain pieces that stand out, and I curate around them. The piece that you were talking about is Mark Schatz.
Yes.
And yes, and an amazing painter. He's a professor here in town. He has a long CV. But that particular piece is of like an LA style diner.
Yes.
I actually don't know where the diner is from. It says the Meadows, in case anybody knows where the Meadows is.
Yeah.
I would really like to know, actually. Send it to me. I should have asked Mark anyway.
Yeah.
But the diner itself has these awesome benches outside, and the entire windowed area is reflecting everything that's on the outside of the viewer's realm, but he paints all the intricacies of all of that in there. So you see like the cars reflected in, and the side posts, and like all this stuff. And that photorealism is really what drew me to his work, because when he submitted that, I looked at the other pieces. He has some like in a pool space with everything's reflected in the water, and he details all the intricacies of all the things you really see, the photorealism. So that particular piece, very exciting, fit kind of in that fun, LA vibe thing that we were going for. But what's interesting is it's not exactly something I was going for, but it's what was presented and just like laid itself out. I think everybody wanted a little bit more color.
Yeah.
Little fun, little color, little travel.
Yes.
right now.
Yes, right now, especially.
Right now.
Well, that's what's great about the On God is that, and I bring up the On God because there really isn't a hotel. And I've been, over the country. I've been very fortunate. I told you we were just talking about places we traveled earlier, and I was like, we've been to Amsterdam, and there's something about this hotel that's so cool though, because each room is a different color. Like you've got red, you've got green, you've got blue, you've got yellow. And I don't mean to harp on that, but I do think that it's really set a good service to the community to have something like that there. So how do you kind of feel being not only at the On God, but you are definitely somebody who is a staple to Grand Center with your work. How do you feel, normally we talk about like LA, New York, or anything like that, but we're here based in St. Louis. How do you feel about being a part of the artistic district here and having people so involved in something like that, like an art show?
Well, I am truly honored to be part of the growth here in St. Louis. I do feel like there is a renaissance happening, and I've been in many other cities and seen many other things happening, and I come back to St. Louis and I'm like, we have all the resources and all the potential of this and all the talent. But sometimes it just takes time to cook, like bring it all together. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that you would say, you're working on that ego I was talking about earlier that's totally flown the coop since COVID, but I'm glad we're like working it out. The red hair's helping.
Hey, there we
go. But somebody just recently called me a cultural icon, and I was like, well, that is heavy. That's very heavy, but I would accept that, and I'll put that in my pocket, because I have talked about if people send you a message or something and it's just something that just like bolsters you up, that you need to print it out and keep it somewhere so that you can reference it. Anyway, so I happened to write that one down. But to your question, I do feel very fortunate to be in the position that I am in, because the Grand Center Arts District is a small but vibrant community, and I feel lucky to be one of its cultural cheerleaders, one of the people that's really trying to champion it through to grow, because I do believe that any city needs certain hubs where people can be re-inspired and re-energized. Like you can't do that all the time. You have to have a place to like recharge for that creative spirit. And the On God is such a place because it accepts all people, emerging artists, established artists, the creative within everyone. We even have a chalkboard in between the bathrooms where anyone can come and just create some art and be like, this is my art that I made today. Mm-hmm. And I had a martini, it was fantastic. But the On God has that charm too, because it's not too hoity, but it's also not like a coffee shop feeling. It has a certain bit of luxury. It has a little bit that LA, has a little bit of elsewhere. Actually, On God is named in memoriam from On God Paul, who was from London. And On God had in himself a very large, beautiful personality, very creative. And you can just tell from everyone that speaks about him that he was just a big, fun-loving kind of guy with a lot of creative spirit. And we have quotes at the hotel that we use as a mantra and as an ethos to, propel us forward in our programming, propel us forward in what we're doing. Our mantra being, what is art but seeing the world in a different way? And that's all On God's words. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, On God passed away in 2015, and the project did take a slight stop, but then his father came in and was like, I really want to see this succeed, and helped finish the project. So we just opened in November of 2018. And then we went through COVID, and we're still here, so yay!
Yes, absolutely. Well, no, it's really cool to have a friend like you who is very ambitious and connects with work and people such as that. And what I loved attending, too, we had this more, I think, pre-COVID, but you did the Coffee with Creative series.
Yeah.
So I love that you were like, here's a creative that, you could meet firsthand and talk. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and how you made that happen?
Yeah, so in the programming for the hotel, when it first opened, there was at first a weekly and then it was bi-weekly. We would have an artist that would come in and talk to the community about what they do or what inspires them. Actually, all the Coffee with Creatives were very different. It was really based on the creative that was coming in. We once had more of like almost more of a marketing firm kind of artistic approach where I walked in and we had a worksheet. Like, we had to fill out a worksheet about, our inspiration and what we want to do with our creative process. And at the end, we kind of all reviewed. But we had musicians in there, painters, dancers, all kinds of different people. I think that all that programming is very important. I do also believe that the in-person is one of the most important things, and one of the things that we noticed how important it was through COVID, because during COVID, that disconnect from the in-person. I mean, even just now, knowing that we're like sitting here together and chatting about this, and not being, through a screen and staring at each other. Because although when we started here, I was like, okay, where do I look? I don't know. Is this? Can I talk to you? Do I talk to myself? Do I look at my drink?
I'm like, literally
my drink
look
is gone.
wherever you want.
So yeah, it's like, what do I look like?
Talking to the mic, do whatever you want. Cheers. Thank you, Chris.
Cheers. Chris has got us going. The red hair is it's hiding the red cheeks, but it's delicious.
I love it. It is pretty good.
So definitely speaking between screens is, that's okay.
I got water over my face. It's fine. Very distracting. All right.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't looking at you at that time. Now I don't even know what I was looking at.
So where are we looking? Hey, Ed. We're looking at tech.
As we're talking through screens, and I'm like, hey, Zoom, what's up, Molly? I can't see you right now. But the one thing about speaking through the screen is, first of all, I mean, who isn't looking at themselves the whole time? I mean, when I'm in a Zoom call and there's like 20 other people, I'm like watching myself move my hands, and I'm watching myself like fidget, and I'm like, okay, like this, this, but that this in-person energy that you get is very important, and it's incredibly important to the creative process. Mm-hmm. I do believe that you derive a certain energy from people. So pre-COVID, when we would have a huge art opening, we'd have upward of 300 and 400 people come through a night, and I would have the artists all meet, and I would want to gather them in the same room and say, please look around. I would like you all to introduce yourselves, to say where your pieces are, because even if you're incredibly active in the arts community, you may not, you don't know. Nobody knows everyone that's doing something.
Right.
And it's amazing is that you think about like this thoroughfare of the up and coming names, or the names everyone knows on their tongue, but there's a little bit of like the older generation, the younger generation, these people that moved in and move out, and I love the mingling of that all. So like right now, the exhibit we have up right now, the biannual, will be up through October. 35 new artists. Of the 35 artists, we have a 17-year-old and a 92-year-old.
Right.
So the range is just amazing. And then, contemporary to plein air to photography to sculpture to, all the different styles. So that's what's amazing, is that an arts community isn't just the graduates that are doing amazing things, or the, totally established artists that have moved on but come back and champion their city. It's all of them. Mm-hmm. So in showing only local artists, you get to showcase all of that, which is pretty exciting for me, especially when I put them in a room together and awkwardly make them talk to each other. They're all like, my name's Vanessa Rudloff. I made the cardboard box. It's in the corner. Okay.
You don't give yourself enough credit, though. You really do a lot. Like when you were on prior, again, we were in what we referred to as the murder basement of the Metropolitan Artist Loft. Yeah. Murder basement. Basically, it was, we talked about this on our previous episode with JC Sabalam, who's a comedian here in St. Louis, but we were saying that he's like, yeah, you go down and there's like a garage. He's like, it was basically a closet. Yeah. Like it was, and now we're in studio, but what I've loved listening back to that episode and then having you here is, we talked about your photography background, and I'll keep it short just because I want to get into what you do now. But, you went over to Seattle, you started in journalism, and you were like, I got to do photography. This is what I want to do. And you do really great work. And maybe I'm biased because you also did my photos for my play, Lady Warrior, that was in the St. Louis Fringe Festival. But that's what I wanted to say. I know you said you did a lot of commercial work and portraitures and whatnot, but what are we doing in our photography realm now, even with COVID going on?
Well, actually a little bit more because of COVID.
Okay.
Because you can have a little bit more one-on-one and be outdoors and have been 6 feet away and still take pictures. So I did begin to entertain that part of myself again. When you take on a whole project that, like, you know, starting a curation process for an arts hotel, I was a little involved. But I have started to nurture that side of me just a little bit more and getting back to it, and also incorporating it into the hotel. We, you know, for photographs for social media and stuff like that. But the great reveal, which is now more public knowledge than it doesn't really matter, but that I'm going to be entertaining myself a whole lot more with photography moving forward, because I'm going to be going somewhere very exotic.
Yes.
And in that exoticness, everyone that goes there is on vacation and also probably dropping a lot of bones. But I plan to just, you know, put myself out there as a Instagram influencer, photographer, doing this and that. But really, I'm going to tell you guys, it's a beautiful, beautiful island. And I want to just get a motorcycle and put my camera on my back and just be like, I'm here. Can I say whore?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm whoring myself out. I'm whoring myself out here in 2022. I'm just going to go do whatever I need to do to take some photos and live on a beautiful island. And I'm just going to be like, you want to take pictures on a yacht for the next 2 hours? Yeah, I'll follow you around. Where are you?
Yes.
Tell me where you are. I'm on my motorcycle. I'm ready to go.
That sounds like the Vanessa Motorcycle Diaries, like something around those lines.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I do think it's like, it's a side of me that hasn't been entertained in a long time. I've been building a lot of things for other people. Even before this, I was just building for other people. And I'm like, I am ready to just build it for myself.
Yes.
So I got to take this little hiatus on an island with other islanders. Not me, but I plan to be on a yacht at least once. So, my goodness. And I got to get my, you know, swimsuit body together.
Oh my
Thanks,
gosh.
COVID.
We were just talking about that earlier. I just was like, I don't even know if I could be in a swimsuit body right now. That's okay.
With the motivation of a huge beach.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. Yeah, you could do a lot.
I love that though. I think that's great. You know, with COVID, I think it put, and I know this is going to sound really cliche, but I think it put a lot of things in perspective. We talked about this even off the mic about, you know, what we kind of want to do moving forward, where we want to travel to, what we want to do. You brought up an interesting point, though, about artistry, how sometimes we curate and make things for other people, and sometimes we neglect, per se, and you can correct me if I'm not phrasing this right, but we neglect kind of the art that we like and like we want to pursue and do. And I don't think that's necessarily something that, you know, isn't like not, I was about to say intensive, but like intentional. There's the word. Thank you.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
You're welcome. You found it yourself.
Like, I just have to talk it out with people. And Vanessa, you're like one of those people where I can be like, hold on, I'm trying to figure it out. And she's like, the power is here. Yes. I love that though. That's why we're friends. I love that about you. So do you feel like COVID, I know we did talk about it a little bit, but just to share with our listeners, do you feel like COVID was a jumpstart to you moving to your next step in photography and getting this motorcycle and doing all of this? And where do you think that the future of the arts is going now that COVID is kind of, you know, I'm not saying everything's under wraps necessarily, but things are opening up. There's more galleries that are happening. Things are kind of changing. Where do you kind of stand on that as well, moving forward into the arts for yourself, and maybe just your perspective on where the future of that might be?
So that's a pretty involved question, because
it
has a lot of tentacles.
Yes.
There's me, there's the arts, there's more of the arts and me together.
I know. I just consider you all one.
That's okay. I'm just myself, a masterpiece. Thank you. The ego, it's being stroked so much, and then Chris gave me this drink.
You're welcome.
And mine's gone. Okay, so, well, we'll start on the spectrum. I'm a Libra, so we'll start with me. And then we'll move on to the rest of the world, because, you know, me. But anyway, I do believe, and I do think this happened a lot in COVID. I actually have to say that I am so excited to see all the artwork that has come out of this last year.
Yes.
I just can't wait for every gallery show ever, because so even during COVID, I started hashtagging certain art that was being posted hashtag COVID curated. But I truly believe that the most amazing shows are going to come out of this moment where everyone was intensely having to interpret their feelings. Like, I think people that even hadn't embraced their artistic side were embracing it more and more, because you have time to do that, because you have to cope. I mean, that's one of the things about art, is that it helps you express yourself. I mean, that's what art is. So in case you guys want to know, that's what art is, to express yourself.
Definitions.
So for myself, I have long had, which we have talked about, but I'll tell the masses that I have long had an idea for kind of a retreat-esque. Sometimes it's called the commune, sometimes it's called Rudloff Ranch, sometimes it's the B&B and retreat. But I do believe that I have always been meant to have a communing area, an area that people feel comfortable to share, that they want to talk about their inspirations, they want to talk about all the little things that make up what they are doing at that time. I think artists wear their hearts on their sleeves and express themselves most openly, because that's what they are processing every day as they create art. And I love to listen. So I've always felt like I wanted a safe place to do that. And everywhere I've moved, and I have been in many different cities. I've been in Seattle, I've been in Paris, France, Oklahoma, Texas, LA-ish, like kind of bopping around. I wasn't in LA very long. I wasn't permanently in LA, in case anybody's asking. But every time I'm in one of those places, I do see something there that I'm like, this could be the hub. And when I was in St. Louis, I was like, Grand Center Arts District is the hub. And that's when I planted myself here. And I feel very proud of the arts programming at the hotel, because it now has a skeleton to have 2 biannual exhibits a year, 4 quarterlies that especially and only exclusively show local artists. And that is just amazing for St. Louis. So if I have done nothing else, that makes me very excited. It had started, but I do feel like no matter where I lily pad to, that footprint will continue in whatever it happens. And so for myself, I feel like, okay, I've birthed this. That's birthed. Now I'm gonna let it grow a little. And I wanna work on my own personal project. And I find that COVID made me do that. COVID was like, yo, you're not getting any younger, you're just getting bigger and bigger. You need to slow down, you need to do this, do. So, very interesting. The first week of lockdown, we were still open. The hotel has been open the whole time. And now I'm talking to the screen. I don't know why, but
that's all right. You're talking to the audience.
I'm talking.
And if you're listening,
I'm talking to you, Molly.
Yeah. You are. You're talking to me. If you're listening, you're hearing this in your ears. This is very fascinating. I'm very excited.
I'm so glad. I totally lost my train of thought, but totally good. No,
it's right. Yeah,
I'm just joking.
When the hotel.
But when the hotel opened, we had some programming, and we had the permanent artists were commissioned, which was fantastic. Had all this stuff. But there were a lot of like open walls, and this idea that we had the potential to do things, but no one had really been like, this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, you have to like define these things. But now with that in place, and we come back down to this Rudloff Ranch idea, which is a retreat, this brings it back to when I was in COVID. I said that the first week we were open during quarantine was very funny to me, because everyone else like locked down. They went home, they started knitting, they were doing all these things,
making bread,
and I was tomatoes. Like discovering all these things they haven't been doing all this time, and I'm still going to work, and I'm a incredibly social person, so like I was still going to work and I was still dealing with things I didn't want to deal with, and then I'd come home and I had no release. And so I was like, oh my gosh. But you know what? My dogs were over the moon. They were like, quit your job right now. We're so excited to see you so much more. They were just like ecstatic. They were like, it's my birthday. Why are you here so much? So excited, pet my belly. And I was like, okay, so I get it. So my experience was like, okay, I got to spend more time with my dogs, which was nice. But also I looked at my schedule and I was like, oh my gosh, I just like was going everywhere. I had like 3, I was going to coffee here and studio visit there and going to this opening and going to check this thing out and doing this and trying to, connect. And when it all slowed down, and even virtual or phone call connection was like, we're going to take a break. And I was like, oh, we're taking a break now. I'm like, oh, okay. So you like slow down. You're like, okay, now what do we do? And I didn't know what to do. And I realized that slower time, that beautiful slow time, was what I needed to recharge, and that we all need it at some point. Like we all need to slow down. I'm sure Molly's show has never gotten so quiet and so slow. Listen to the sound of my voice. I did a lot of meditation during COVID.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same.
I listened to people say, you're okay. You're okay. And I was like, I'm okay. They're like, you're okay, go to sleep now. And I'm like, okay, I'll go to sleep now.
What is it, ASMR or something? Yeah, that's your voice right now. Yeah. I love it. Everybody's going to be like, does she have an account? Go to sleep now. Go to sleep now. Molly, go to sleep now. I'll be like, I need it. I need some sleep.
Yeah, I think I should have had that drink. It was fantastic.
I know. I'm still drinking mine.
Yeah, you should drink more. Go to sleep now.
I'm laughing so.
Okay, well, so anyway. So the other, so that was Libra moment. That was me talking about myself a lot. My face is so red, so hot. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
So art in general, super excited, super fantastic. Me and art, I do hope that once I create this safe, very mesmerizing platform for people to come and really slow down, but take a moment, have a good conversation, always around food.
Yes.
But I've had several people say, you know what, when you get older and you don't care anymore and you're not building anything for anyone else, your art is going to be fucking phenomenal. And I was like, well, okay, well, what am I making? And they're like, everything you ever talk about is awesome and you never make any of it. And I was like, okay. And so I was thinking about it. I really do, honestly, I'm constantly creating artwork in my brain, but I don't ever actually manifest anything. And I was thinking about what would I do if this was just it was working. It was doing its thing and I had some time and I had a little space. I think I would make some really, really crazy art. I take a white box and a big, a studio box that a person would fit into. And I think I would create this super collaged, all this junk, because I'm a super hoarder, and all this junk together, and then put a person in the middle of it and just do a portrait of this person with all this stuff around.
Yeah.
And then the whole process, the whole art was this one photo that I spent all day building.
That's really cool.
And that would be it.
I would love to see this.
It's in my brain somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I do it all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm all about the photography part, the collaging part, the colors, the ephemera, the stuff, the tactile stuff. If it wasn't such a liability, I would probably make that person bring all their favorite stuff from their home and build them into it. But then, their favorite Chuck E. Cheese toy breaks and then I'm sued and then that's it. So I don't know. I'm afraid of liabilities.
But isn't that
a little bit of a
crazy?
fatalist?
Oh my gosh, no though. I think that's actually a really good point because I feel like there's even for me, I remember being in my early to mid 20s and I told you I ran a production company for 5 years. Right. And I'm the same way. I think that's why, I know that's why we're friends. I shouldn't say I think, is because you and I both like to, and this is why we're friends, for whispering, for dramatic effect. But we like to build community. We like to bring communal spaces. And for those 5 years, that was my way of building community, was writing plays and producing them and casting people. And I remember I used to have so much energy where I could produce 9 plays a year, went to the Chicago Fringe Festival, moved back to St. Louis, did plays there. And I really want to go and start producing shows again, whether that being a comedy show, a live podcast show. But I'm finding myself, and I'm not old, I'm 30, but I'm tired. And a lot of it happens in my brain where I get super excited and I am still doing things I'm writing a book and I'm doing my paint by numbers and I'm doing shows and I'm doing this podcast. So I'm not hating on myself because I am doing work, but but a lot of it, like you said, just like manifests in your brain, and you're like, but how do I curate this or create this and bring this out? And I feel like a lot of artists or writers, like there's people who write books and just have papers and papers in their drawers for years and never bring it out to fruition. I ran into somebody one time in Cincinnati that said that to me. They were like, oh, I was doing a play in Cincinnati, and they were like, who's the playwright? And me being like young and 25, I was like, it's me. And this guy was so nice. He was like, because I told him, I said, well, I'm not famous, like I'm not on Broadway or even off Broadway, like I just produce my own work. He's like, but look at what you're doing. Like I've had a script sitting in my desk for years that I haven't even brought to life, and you have an audience of 40 people watching your show. So I say that not to be like, wow, look at me, I have an audience of people.
It was a fantastic show, or at least the one I saw.
Yes,
Lady Warrior. Love
That's
it.
the one he was talking about. Yeah. So why, or actually, you know what? It wasn't. It was actually Old Wound. So, but anyway, Lady Warrior was
Lady Warrior was fantastic.
Sorry you missed it. No, can't be. I was like, no, I never produced that. Well, anyway, enough about my resume. Why I say this is that you are doing a lot. Like you're making photography, or making like art in different forms where you're curating it for other people. You have you did pictures for my show. You're doing a lot. But I think a lot what artists do is they're like, but there's so much more I could do. Like anybody I talked to on this podcast, whether they're an artist or a comedian or a playwright, even people like chefs too, they're like, I asked this very nice girl, Kayla Robeson, you guys should listen to her episode, not because she was on here, but she's great. She won Guys Grocery Games.
Because we love her.
Yeah, and we love her. But I asked her, I was like, what's your favorite meal to make? Like you do when you talk to a chef. And what I loved about her answer was she goes, my favorite meal is a meal I haven't made yet. And I was like, wow.
That's an artist.
That is an artist right there.
Yeah.
And that's why she's been on the cooking channel and Guys Grow, because she's not like full of shit. She's not like, here's a crock pot and I did this. Like literally, she's not bragging about anything. She's like, I'm making stuff and I'm making it happen. And I feel like you are too. You're just like anybody, especially coming out of COVID. So what's my next step? Like, what am I going to do now? But you seem to have
live on an island with a motorcycle.
I was going to say, that's
camera.
a great step. You got a motorcycle, an island, and a camera. That's better than most people.
That's what COVID did to me. Go to live on an island.
COVID just reminded me that I still can't open a salsa jar by myself. So it's fine.
It takes two to, I was going to say tango, but isn't there like a...
It took two to button my pants,
we didn't even say that. I was thinking back to your question and I totally glazed right over it.
Yeah.
But I was also going to say, at one point, Molly was pretty much giving the spill back of what our other episode been, and I was like, she was really paying attention. I mean, she just told me where I lived, what schooling I went to, what I was doing. I was like, man, you really listened to that episode, like hardcore.
Yes.
But the best part about the first time we were on Casually Molly in the creepy killer murder basement is that we had really just kind of started being friends. We're both so busy. I mean, it's like literally like woo!
Yes.
But we had finally just started hanging out, and I had gotten tickets to the Fox, and it was dueling cellos, which is fantastic.
Yes.
And then and I literally got the tickets like right before the performance was starting, and we live very, very, very close.
Oh yeah, like maybe across the street. Maybe you could be in pajamas and then you could be at dueling pianos in 5 minutes. Yeah, or dueling, what was it? Two cellos.
Two cellos. Dueling pianos. I want to do that too. Okay, so anyway, newly fresh friends. We hadn't gotten into all the intimate stuff yet, except Molly had her arm in a cast. We'll do it like this instead of chicken wing.
One of those.
One of these. And so she only had one hand functioning, and she's like, I would really love to be there across the street with you, but I can't button my pants. And I'm alone, and I only have one hand. And I was like, well, come on over. I'll help you button your pants. And she walked across the street into our Broadway theater, the Fabulous Fox, into the bar where I was eating my flatbread, and I was waiting for Molly to show up. And she's like, okay. She had these like sexy, like they're like white pants, and it was the kind that had like the 4 buttons, like not a zipper, but the 4 buttons. That's a really fancy pant. She was like, came over and I just buttoned her pants, and we became instant friends.
I know, you even bought me my flatbread that night. I was like,
I felt bad for you. You walked across with no pants buttoned, so into this public place, and I was like, yes, she's with me. She can't button her pants. Come on over.
That bartender was so nice too. She's like, oh, I love Two Cellos. You guys are going to be great. I've seen them live plenty of times. I was like, oh, good. She didn't even acknowledge my pants. She was like, here's some whiskey. Here's the flatbread. We're done. Like, I was like, women helping women. I absolutely love it. Like, we were laughing so hard we almost missed the show. She was like, you need to go see the show. You have tickets. But that was a really cool show. I know. She's like, get in there. You guys got to see it. I was like, we're going. I'm the one that's holding it up. It's fine. But it was just hilarious.
A pleasant surprise. That was a really good show.
That was the best. You were like, I got these free tickets. I was like, that's really, but you know what? I used to work at, which is now closed, Hotel Ignacio, but that was the same. We also connected. That's how we're so similar. We're artists. We do a lot of great things.
We both have similar hair.
We do have similar hair. I love that.
Right now it's
we
red.
Do great things.
But we do great. You said we do great things, and I'm like hair. But both about the same age, brunette. Lovely personalities at the front desk of the two hotels in the Grand Center. And so every time someone's like, oh, the one at the front desk with the brown hair, it's got to be Molly or Vanessa.
Oh, totally.
There was only us.
That was my favorite too. Whenever I needed to walk with people over to the On God if we were sold out, because we were a smaller arts boutique hotel, I would call and I would hear like, On God Arts Hotel, this is Vanessa. How can I help you? I'm like, Vanessa, it's me.
And I'm like, sleep, sleep, sleep.
And now my old GM is your GM, which is hilarious. It's just amazing how life works like that. I'm like, oh, hey, Stace, what's up?
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, St. Louis is small.
Yeah.
St. Louis is all, everybody knows everybody, but still.
We definitely repped St. Louis tonight, which I really appreciate. Yeah. I did want to ask you, we have a lot, speaking of arts institutions that we have here, is there a special, or a favorite of yours that you like to go to? We record this podcast, excuse me, I was like, this studio. Well, the studio, it is located, the studio
Grand Center.
is in Grand Center Arts District. Even though I don't live here in the Arts District anymore, I still very much consider this my second home, if not my first, many times. I feel like you and I both actually grew really in our careers to our next step in this area. Is there a specific place in Grand Center you love? Or it could even be like a nice restaurant. What are some of your favorite places here in the area?
Yeah, I have a really deep love affair with the Grand Center Arts District. I think it's because it was what called me back to St. Louis. So I took it upon myself and my two dogs to explore this area very deeply. We've walked every street, we've looked and sniffed on everything and whatever. But I think that the secret places where I do like that moment of quiet where you have a secret place that you feel like other people don't know. So pre-COVID, my favorite hiding place was Sophie's Artist Lounge, which was actually in this building.
Right. Underneath us?
Where? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's underneath this. Yes.
Okay.
Because we used to promote comedy shows that we would do in Sophie's. So that's why.
Yeah. So it was great because it was kind of off the beaten path, a little secretive. You had to come up an elevator to get into it too, which is a lot like the On God. The On God's like, where's the front door? It's in the back. Right. Where do you check in? On the 12th floor. Where you check in at every hotel? On the 12th floor.
Right.
It's on the 12th floor, guys. So the Sophie's Artist Lounge, you had to take the elevator up, and then you'd walk in. It's like the record store or the bar. But then if you walk through the bar, which a lot of comic nights or stand-up nights were there.
Yeah, Chris Denman produced all of those.
Chris Denman, who I used to come and just watch him before he was making me drinks.
Yeah, he is sponsored by Jack Daniels. It was I got to be part of that show multiple times. It was a lot of fun. I hope it comes back.
Yeah, I used to love that show. I went one time in my pajamas. That was the theme, but I went in my pajamas.
She did.
Yeah, but if you went through the bar, there was a little patio. It's on the back, and it's actually between the two buildings and then the railing, and you can look over and you can stalk people on the sidewalk. So I used to just, in the middle of the day, just walk down, get a drink, and I'd sit there and listen to people's conversations on the sidewalk, which was very entertaining. I loved that. And then more recently, I have loved Park-like, which is across the street from the Pulitzer. It's actually the grassy, it's all natural Missouri. native, not natural. I mean, they're natural too. They're not fake. Native grasses and prairie plants of Missouri. And that's just a block down from the hotel. So sometimes when I just need to get away and get that little bit of a walk, I'll walk down there and I'll walk through the grass and over the little bridge and kind of have this little sit, which is quite beautiful, and was totally available during COVID. So that was beautiful too. So these quiet, serene moments, the Grand Center Arts District has so many secret little places. Like, I love the galleries and I love going to plays and I love being able to see live music all the time. Pre-COVID, a little bit mid-COVID.
Yeah, because we got some outdoor shows and stuff going on, sure.
But I do miss people. And I have to give one supreme shout out that they'll never see this and they have no idea, but Brennan's Work and Leisure is a couple blocks up from this studio.
Yeah. I did a show there before COVID happened. Yeah, I did the Arguments and Grievances show.
Perfect.
Yes. So I know, because they've got it in the Central West End, because you know what, my day job's in the Central West End, but that's the newer location. And
and that's
they're
a co-op. That's like a co-op venue space. So pretty much it's working space for the laptop connoisseur.
Oh yeah.
And then evening events. But even through COVID, I mean, like after the main quarantine, but even through COVID, they were still doing like curbside coffee style, and still working down the street at the hotel. I have to admit that just having a place to go see other humans and get a coffee was like the most beautiful escape, because I had literally for a year only seen the same like 7 people's faces, and I was so done with all those faces. And
I'm sorry if one of those was mine.
No,
I love you.
No, absolutely not your face. Love your face.
I made you walk the dogs with me once. I remember I was like, we need to go walk the dogs, and you were like, okay.
No, the 7 faces were the ones that I worked with every day that I just like,
And I worked at a hotel during COVID, so it was the same thing for us too. We were like, like,
I love you, but I must get away now.
Yes.
So I started frequenting that so much that I just realized that was like, it was literally my other meditation. So I'd go home and meditate, but then during the day I'd always leave and go get a coffee and hang out with the boys at Brennan's. So.
I love them too, because they used to they might still keep doing it because it was probably pretty successful, but they did like the boxes that you could have delivered.
The booze
the booze snacks. I'm saying it wrong, but it was really cool because I saw it on Facebook, because some of the guys who work there also work with the Flyover Comedy Festival and are involved in the comedy community, and I follow them on Facebook. And one of these was, and for those of you who don't know me personally, I really love Maker's Mark whiskey. I'm not trying to be like gross and be like, I just love a drink on the rocks, but there's just something.
Jack Daniels.
No, sorry,
totally
Jack Daniels.
just gave us our drink. No big deal.
No, it's okay. But I do like Jack Daniels too. But I love Maker's, and there was a Maker's box with snacks. And I remember I was like really overworked. We weren't doing that was when things were really locked down. And I was so thankful to Brennan's for making my day and delivering this box to my apartment. It was so professional. It was like opening, it's like when for people who like to do online shopping, I don't really do it a lot, but I really treated myself. And there was cigars in it too. So Jimmy and I smoked cigars.
Oh, nice.
It was like, what am I doing?
Durango cigars, by the way.
Hey, but
I'm one of their biggest supporters. I send people their direction all the time.
See, I never did it. I was like, you know what? It's COVID. We're stuck at home. Why don't we try it? I never did it again, but I did try it one time, and I was like, all right, now I can check this off my bucket list. I smoked a cigar. There you go. Yeah. But it was something like that, just something, I think that's not to be like a cliche of like, it's just the small things, but it really was like being able to have a whiskey when I came home and have the little snacks that came with it, because it lasted me like a good week or so. I was like, I'll have this with my dinner. And I felt like real fancy, real classy, but it was nice. So shout out to Brennan's Work and Leisure for setting
Cheers,
up
my
these
auntie.
girls. I know, right?
Right down the street.
What I will ask you, too, which was a great ode. I love that idea, just because I know a lot of people who listen will go like, you always talk about Grand Center. Where do you enjoy going? I agree. I also love the fountain I know it's a classic, but I promote the fountain all the time.
Soup.
Oh, yeah. No, it's one of the oldest restaurants in St. Louis, and it's one of the, I read somewhere it's like the top photographed restaurant in St. Louis.
I heard that it was the top photographed bathroom in St. Louis, and I was like, what's up with this bathroom?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Art Deco. It's very cute, but it's very small.
What I just love are the walls. If you Google the fountain on Locust, for those of you who are listening or watching, if you look at the walls, you'll understand. But that's where one of the places I went during COVID was I went and got an ice cream martini, and I picked it up, I think. And then one time I went in with my mask on just to get an ice cream martini. I was like, I just need it.
It was like 4 pages of martinis.
Oh, yeah. And I just kept choosing which one. And like beforehand, that staff was also really good to me. I used to get like little coupons when I was at St. Louis University up the street. But that is like a fan favorite of mine. I'll always, even if I don't live in the area, I'm always going to support the Fountain on Locust. That's one of my favorites. But speaking of favorites, you've been giving a lot of great advice, but we always ask, what's a casual tidbit of advice maybe you would give to yourself starting out that you know now, as Vanessa Rudloff going on into her next chapter with an island, a camera, and a motorcycle?
Right. A casual advice. Might have to recycle advice, but it's so true now, even as true as it was when I first learned it. And I kind of do come back to it in each of the different levels of maturity I'm in. It changes depending on where I am in my life. But when I was in high school, I will give a shout out to John Travis, my teacher, my Spectra teacher in high school. Spectra was like it's weird to say Spectra and you guys don't know what I'm talking about, but it's like a gifted education program.
Oh, wow.
That we had.
That's why I don't know what you're talking about, because it's a gifted education program
so gifted
that I would never be in.
Yeah, so uncomfortable. My cheeks are getting red again. But it was a very special kind of class this doesn't pertain to the advice, but the point is that this man really knew me. So John Travis, Mr. Travis, my teacher at Francis Howell North, for all of you, very local. Where did I go to high school? I went to Francis Howell North. Now we have established that I'm from St. Louis. I went to Francis Howell North, guys.
I am not from St. Louis, but Cincinnati also has that same question. It's a Cincinnati question. Oh, yeah.
So where did you go?
St. Ursula Academy, baby. East Walnut Hills, up in the city. Hey, what up, Cincy?
Hey, I should say if I tell you when I graduated, you'll be like, oh my God.
Wait, when did you graduate?
Well, I graduated in 2004.
Okay, I graduated in 2009.
Oh, perfect.
So that's not too, basically, and we're not too far apart in age. So
yeah, roundabouts.
Yeah.
So back to the advice.
Oh, back to the advice, sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Travis. So I had actually already gone on to college. I went to Mizzou for advertising because the journalism school was like the best in the country, and everyone's like, go there, you can go there for free. And I was like, I don't want to go there. It's 2 hours from my home and blah, blah, blah. So I went there for just a little bit. But I was not happy, and I was doing a lot of, I was spending actually a lot of my loan money on electives that had nothing to do with my major. And actually one day, so the journalism school was very competitive. I was in advertising, but I hadn't even made it to the part of like the specialty advertising classes. I was still in like the GEDs or whatever. I don't know anything about adulting, so I was in the pre-classes. I didn't do very good at college. No, I'm just joking. I met someone who was on a waiting list for the journalism school, and I felt like such a dick because I had a position at the journalism school, was like the top in the country, and I was taking all these crazy other classes that had nothing to do with my major, and I was actually staying up late into the night making film prints. I was printing in the wet lab in photography, which again had nothing to do with my major. So I was taking all these other classes and I was spending all this money. I was doing all these other things, and this person's like, oh yeah, I'm so excited, I can't wait to get into the journals. I'm on a waiting list for the advertising program or whatever it was. And I was like, okay, what am I doing? I'm keeping someone from what they want to do, and I'm not doing that. So I went back to Mr. Travis, who was my high school teacher, and he said, sometimes people that are good at a lot of different things will never succeed at anything because they don't focus on one. They spread themselves too thin and they do all these different things, and so they'll never succeed because they have spread their resources. And I was like, oh, okay, that was me. And so within, I don't know, it was so fast. My family was like, what, you're moving to Seattle? And I was like, yep, packing the car right now. I very quickly decided that what I do with my time was look at like really high-end fashion magazines. I'd go to Barnes & Noble and I'd buy like the $25 one that was from London that we had one of. And I would not read a single article, and I would look at all those photos and dream up all these crazy photo shoots I would do with long dresses and crazy Alphonse Mucha hair and like all bedazzle. So I left Mizzou. I gave that kid some, awesome future. But I decided to go to Seattle and pursue photography, commercial photography solely. And I do believe that advice continuously, you have to like regroup. So constantly you'll get to the point where you're like, what am I doing? And you look around and you're like, man, I'm doing all of this stuff. I need to regroup. I need to focus, because if I spread my resources too thin, then I'm not going to succeed in anything. Mm-hmm. And I've probably done it 2 or 3 times where I'm just like, regroup. And so I do believe that COVID was a regrouping for everyone, but also that I specifically was like, my family's moved into this island. So my mom and my sister and my niece. And
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And even still, I was like, I'm staying at the On God. And I'm building something.
Yes.
And so I was staying. But to be very honest, to get real, I had emergency surgery in November during COVID, which I can tell you, going through the emergency room in the middle of the night during COVID was nothing I ever want to experience again.
Right.
And I didn't have my family around me to just, feed me soup and help me get through things.
You should have called me. I'm your family.
It's okay. I put things in place. I called people when I was at the hotel or the hospital, and I was
you button my pants, I button your pants.
I know. I was there. I was beyond pants. I was moo-moo all the way. Just moo-moo.
I mean, I like that too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm moo-moo and I'm not even sick, so it's
yeah,
okay. But
moo-moos
anyway,
are the best.
Go ahead, not to interrupt.
No, it's okay. So that happened, and it was kind of a realization, like, wow, I'm really cut off from my support system. Like, I have great friends, really great friends, and everyone was very helpful.
Hello.
But yeah. Number one friend.
Go ahead. I'm like in this beautiful moment.
One of my friends even made me an entire vat of chicken soup, or chicken noodle soup, so I could just go reheat it, eat it, lay it back down. Go reheat it, eat it, lay it back down. And I did. I subsisted on chicken noodle soup for a really long time. But so that was the middle of November. So I went through Thanksgiving alone, COVID style. Thanksgiving was just another day for me. I was on the couch. I watched every Marvel movie, guys. Every single Marvel movie in chronological order. But then only a couple weeks later, my dog died, my Mr. Winston.
Yeah, I knew Winnie.
Yeah. And he was 13, and he lived a fantastic life, guys, and it was coming. But just, man, did it have to come right then when I was already like dealing with this, dealing with that, and dealing with all this. And I didn't realize that how much I was holding back because of Winston. This is not funny at all.
No, this is actually
the worst podcast.
Really interesting. This is not the worst. I really am learning a lot.
So much about my personal life.
I love it.
So Mr. Winston, longest relationship of my life. I like to make this joke because I can't even stay in a city for more than 3 years, and I was with Winston for over a decade. Yeah. No, I really I'm at almost 4 years now, and I got the itch. I got to move to an island. I mean, I don't even know. But I was with Winston for almost 11 years, or I don't even know. COVID doesn't count. Maybe 11 years. But anyway, when he passed away, I realized that I was keeping myself from going with my family because I had 2 dogs. I had Winston and this other dog. And you can't really fly with 2. And you had to figure it out, right? And I was like, well, I could leave the one dog here. She's a slut and she needs attention from anyone. I was actually supposed to bring her tonight.
Yeah,
totally
where
forgot.
is Tink?
Totally forgot. Totally forgot. Libra, all
Aunt
about
Molly
me.
misses her. Okay?
I know. Actually, Chris is in the other room. He's like, where is Tinkerbell right
Where
now?
is Tinkerbell? I was like,
Yeah.
Tink loved me. Okay.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, well, actually, both of
She
your
loves
dogs
everyone
really love me.
because she's
So-
a slut. I was just saying, like, she could go home with absolutely anyone and be
Mr.
okay.
Winston
but
and Tink would always sit with me on the couch when I would go to your apartment. That was always nice
Yeah.
about living in the same building. I was like, I'm just going to go to Vanessa's and her dogs are going to sit on me. And I
Yeah.
loved it. But
Yeah.
continue.
No, they love some good snuggles.
Oh, me
So,
too. What
yeah.
a coincidence.
But yeah, now Tinkerbell and I are just gonna fly.
Yeah.
17-hour flight.
I love that though.
She's one of my bags. I only have 2 bags, and one of them is a Schnauzer Shih Tzu.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like it that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, deep. Good
Yeah.
advice though. Don't spread yourself too thin. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
like we have this whole side hustle society now. It's like you have your main job, you have your side hustles job, you have your your family, and then your more intimate family. You have friends, like all these different things, and we are really hyperactive individuals in order to try and balance all of these things. When it used to be, we were all in the village together, and the village was just moving, and you had all these things incorporated. It just supported itself. We're not meant to be focused in so many different avenues.
Yeah.
So,
And
going back to creating the village.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. You actually gave that piece of advice on our last episode. I didn't want to force it out of you, but I'm so glad because I was like, maybe
It's the best advice I ever got, Mr. Travis.
But it's so good. And I remember me being, and again, I was like really drugged up. I was not feeling, but I was like, you know what? I need to remember that because I'm very hard on myself sometimes where I'm like, I'm just not doing, it's like what we talked about earlier. I was like, I'm just not doing enough. I'm not being enough. I'm not a good friend. I'm not a good daughter. And I'm really hard on myself sometimes. And I know I shouldn't be because everybody's like, you're fine. It's great.
Yeah.
But, and this isn't just me. I know a lot of people fall onto this trap because I get it because I'm away from my family too. So during COVID, that was really hard being I couldn't see. I did eventually go to Cincinnati for 5 days once COVID tests were available. I felt more comfortable being like, okay, I tested negative. Now I can go and be with my family. They're also negative. And luckily, my parents have a nice outside backyard. We could sit and hang out. We had the dog, but I knew I was very grateful for that because I knew that not everybody had that same situation. So I understand, when I had my arm broken, all I did was I depended on friends because I was like, oh, I can't call my mom and be like, come on over and help me. But luckily I had girlfriends, my friend Amy, I'll never forget. She's like, I'm bringing you Chick-fil-A. You don't have to, because I was like, I'll reimburse you. I'll Venmo you. She's like, don't worry about it. It's just a salad. It's fine. And, I think you and I, we did this a lot where we're we consider our friends our family too.
Yeah.
Just because you and I are very much nomads in that regard. Even though I will probably not move from St. Louis in a long time, I do like to travel. So I'm St. Louis is my home base. So I'm where am I going to go now? What show am I going to produce
you
here?
You could do that in St. Louis. That's one of the things people are like, why are you back in St. Louis? I'm like, because from St. Louis, I can go to Memphis in 5-6 hours. I can go to Chicago. I can be in Kansas City. I always say Akron, Ohio, and everyone's like, why Akron? I'm like, have you been there? It's awesome.
Yeah, actually, Akron's a really cool. Yeah. And for somebody who makes jokes about Ohio, because I'm from Cincinnati, so I can.
Right.
If anybody else made jokes from Ohio, I'd be like, are you from Ohio? You don't get to do that.
Have you been there?
Sorry. But yeah, no, Akron's actually a pretty cool place. There's a lot of cool places in Ohio that are a lot like Vanessa and I that like the arts and appreciate it. So you definitely check that out. But speaking of checking things out, we're casually ending our episode. Where can we check you out to see some cool? Well, your Instagram handle is probably going to pop up in a second.
Oh,
thank you.
Nice
There's
job.
mine. I know, we're very fancy here if you're watching on YouTube. But where can we find you for those of you who are listening in your car over coffee?
I'm going to do this thing. Ooh. That's me on Instagram, the _same_axis. That actually comes from a quote, and I should share that really fast. How long do we have? I don't know. We're going to give it 30 seconds.
Yeah, let's do it.
The quote is from Henri Cartier-Bresson, and he's a photographer. And it's to photograph is to put one's head, one's heart, and one's eye on the same axis. Pretty sure I didn't talk about that before. No. I've had this email, the same access at gmail.com since the dawn of time. And so now honestly, it's like since like MySpace practically, like since Gmail was a thing, I've had the same access at gmail.com. I just keep holding on to it, but you can find me there. You can find me almost every day at On God Arts Hotel. Come in person and we will get to meet each other, take a tour, come through the Grand Center Arts District. I love everyone here, and Molly and Chris.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, Molly Ambergy and Chris Denman, let me tell you what.
They're here.
Not to refer to myself in third person here, but no, I'm just kidding. Obviously, we all know I'm kidding. I would never refer to myself in third person. I'd probably just drop dead. So anyway, speaking of dropping though, please drop us a line at the Casually Molly Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You name it, just anywhere you want to message, or if you've got an idea for the podcast, just email casuallymolly@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. I get some emails about different episodes people like. I really appreciate that. Listener feedback, especially, even the negative, I'll take it too. I mean, what do they say? Like, I'm like, you didn't like that? I'm like, I'm sorry. We still had to send it out anyway. And just remember to, I always forget to say this, but if you want to casually review the podcast on iTunes, we have some really great reviews. I really appreciate that. So just keep that going and let us know what you like. But now that our episode has ended, I always say, what are you going to casually do now that the episode is over?
I'm casually going to get another drink like this from Chris and spend some time with him because, us casually super fast busy people don't always get to hang out.
That's true. We're going to casually connect. Well, thank you everybody. Connect with us later on, whether again at the same underscore access and at the Casually Molly access, and that's our access at the Casually Molly podcast, and that's Molly with an IE. Thank you everybody. Have a good rest of your night.